think that this concept of no turning back influences, the collective decision making and the choices that we're facing? I mean, it must be pretty scary to know that we've come this far, which is what we wanted, but we can't undo it.
Absolutely, this is a one-way process, and I think if you're watching the news, if you're watching kind of current events, it's going to feel very scary, because you think, I want to, it's the first law of wing walking, isn't it? Don't let go of what you're hanging on to till you're hanging on to something else. So the instinct when you're in fear is to want to go back to the familiar, to have permanency and reliability and stability, but that's disintegrating before our very eyes. And so that's quite a scary place to be. So for me, the only way out of this is shifting your focus and changing your frequency. It's the only way out of this, because if we can turn that panic, anxiety, fear into excitement for what's coming, the people who are focused on the excitement of this, not just transformation, but complete metamorphosis for humanity, we're going to become ultimately a new species, not this year, but it's the beginning of a process, then it becomes immensely exciting, because we've got the most blank canvas we've ever had to create our future. So rather than going, that's terrifying, grasp the opportunity, because it really is a once in humanity's many lifetimes, I believe, opportunity that we're in right now. It's never going to be the predictable, go to school, go to college, meet someone, get married, have a job, buy a house, have kids. We're into very different territory now. So
and
it's
interesting, because we all want to evolve, we all want to expand, and here we have this opportunity to really, polish up our adaptability.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And it's interesting too that we've got a 9-year of completion.
Yeah.
And we've also got the wood snake, and you've been talking about that and what that might potentially signify as well. Tell us a little bit about these, all of these forces that seem to be, it's almost like they've been marshaled. There's this grand plan, and everything, the arm is converging and it's ready to start moving forward.
Yeah, it's really amazing, because it's the same message repeated again and again and again about endings and beginnings. It's a 9-year, that's very much the number of endings. The wood snake, I don't know much about the wood element because I'm not familiar with Chinese astrology, but certainly the snake is a symbol of transformation, because it sheds the skin and never takes back that old skin again. It's a whole new skin for it to move forward. So it's very much a symbol of transformation, and it's very much a symbol linked to Pluto, actually, and Pluto's incredibly powerful this year. And if you look at, we were just chatting about this before recording, if you look at huge cycles of time, like the end of the processional cycle or the end of the Kali Yuga cycle. We're dealing with, 24,000 year cycles, we're dealing with 12,000 year cycles. There's so many major cycles, and you can bring it right down to, okay, let's look at the astrology of the moment. Well, in the next 15 months, all of the outer planets are changing sign. And you have to go back at least 300 years when that happened before, but there weren't the same number as we've got right now. So you've got all that, and if we can go to much smaller cycles like the 11-year sunspot cycle, we're at the peak of solar cycle 25. So everything is converging and peaking and ending and beginning in a kind of tumultuous symphony, if you like. And that can feel very destabilizing, because it's almost like we're trying to build a new house while the old one on the same site is still being demolished. So it's messy, it's chaotic, but nevertheless, a whole new divine human, I think, is starting to emerge, and it's just the very beginning of it. And I've been talking to Richard Rudd about his beautiful analogy of the dragonfly, which is a complete metamorphosis, that this water nymph, which is a predator and lives underwater, just one afternoon decides it's going to climb up the stalk of grass and starts to emerge. And it's actually very interestingly, it's the hydraulic force of the water in its body that pumps up its wings, and within hours, the dragonfly then becomes a creature of the air and never ever goes back underwater. And this is the process, this is the scale of the process that we're beginning right now. And the wonderful Dr. Zach Bush, as well as Richard Rudd and Lee Harris, good friend of yours, all are starting to talk about this new human, this future human that has and we have a new biology starting to emerge.
Yeah.
And I can see it in the astrology too.
Yeah. And what's so interesting is things that would have been dismissed or completely ignored or poo-pooed even just 5 years ago are suddenly, exploding in the mainstream. I mean, the telepathy tapes, all of these topics, the channels, the technologies, the galactic communication, people are taking it seriously now.
Yeah, and I think the galactic connection is one of the big game changers. So, from my point of view in astrology, so often I've done it all my career as well. We go back to the previous cycles and what happened there, and what can we intelligently predict in today's circumstances that will repeat again. But the galactic connection is one of the really big game changers, because we haven't had that in many lifetimes. And as you say, Sandy, you're speaking to people who are connected to the galactic beings. I had a wonderful interview last week with Dr. David Clements, who was being guided by galactic beings and even beyond our galaxy, he was saying, to make amazing technology which is regenerative.
Yes.
Lots of people channel galactic beings. This is a whole new era of reminding us that we are also galactic citizens. We are not just humans, we are galactic citizens. And that's going to be amazing.
It's so interesting watching the polarization that's taken place over the last few years. It's almost like we're going into two divisions, two timelines, where we're seeing, one thing over there, another over here. And, even I was looking up the wood snake. It's about secrets. And it's about revelations. So it's like we're flipping all the time. So it's astonishing to think where that might lead us.
Oh, I think it's going to be absolutely huge. And, almost everything we've understood and been taught about our world, I think is going to change. I think it's going to be very different. And you're absolutely right. This is a massive year of truth, of revelation. That's why it's going to be so fast moving and shocking and stunning and head spinning for people who are not aware. But I think even the history of humanity, we're going to discover, is very, very different from what we've thought. And it's going to come kind of rapid fire, starting any minute, actually. It's going to become very rapid fire. And so we have to, each of us, find our own stability, our own anchor, our own center. And things like frequency and coherence, heart coherence, are going to matter more than they ever have in the past, because they're going to become our anchors.
Yeah. You've become a wonderful source, not only of astrology, information, but you find all these amazing people who are now coming forth, all the new technologies, and, you've done some wonderful conversations with people that have been introduced to the mainstream. How do you find all these people?
Sammy, I honestly don't know. Sometimes people send me videos and say, you've got to watch this, but I get 40 of those a day, and I could spend all day just watching video. I've got other things to do. But just occasionally I'm drawn to watch one or two of them, and I think, wow, this person's a genius, and they're working in their back garage, and need to launch them into the world. And sometimes it's people who write to me. Nancy Rebecca was someone who wrote to me about her galactic connections and the blue light beings, and wow, yes, it's fascinating. So, and Veda's work I hooked onto a few years ago, and I thought, my goodness, this is paradigm shattering stuff. And so sometimes it's my own discovery, other times it's people writing to me, other times it's, you've got to watch this video. But Nancy Rebecca actually said, she said, you are very good at finding completely obscure people and kind of digging them out of their holes and saying, no, you're going to be launched on the world, whether you like it or not, buckle up. So it's going to get very busy. So it's great though, because each of them I feel have got a very unique voice and a very important voice in today's world, because we are, and I've been saying this for the last 2 years, we're moving into paradigm shattering times. And I think the telepathy tapes, which you and I have chatted about, Andy, is a great example of shattering paradigms. That's very Aquarian.
Absolutely. And it's just so rewarding, especially, when you've been around as long as we have. And, to be able to support these people who just have, this incredible knowledge that humanity really needs to know about. I mean, that's something that's driven me in all of my shows. I like to, champion the underdog. And I know that, clearly you like to push people out there. But my goodness, I expect some of them you're going to have to issue a warning, because, they're going to blow up. And they need to be prepared for it.
Yes, you're going to be awfully busy from this point on, no turning back. But I mean, the telepathy tapes are a beautiful example of the Aquarian energy, because the Aquarian energy is, the outsider, the one who doesn't fit. It can be quite cool or appear to be emotionally detached. They're kind of disregarded, on the periphery of society, often connected to youth, to young people, and often connected to genius.
Yes.
People who are bringing innovations or genius thinking into society. And what a great example the telepathy tapes were.
Yes.
For those people who haven't heard about them, this began, I think, with an American female child psychiatrist who was working with severely autistic, nonverbal young people, children and young people, and she was discovering their genius. And of course, she was struck off as a result. But a filmmaker became very interested in her work and produced the telepathy tapes, which I'd recommend to anyone. I think it's just in audio form at the moment, Sandy.
It is just in audio form, and I think they're coming to the end of their current series, but they'll be back with another one soon. And what they are doing, I mean, they are, I don't know whether I should be telling this, but I know that Kai is working with Susie Miller, who's been talking to these kids for nigh on 30 years. And they're looking, at people who are offering them funding to start special educational places, schools, whatever you want, I don't know what you want to call it. It's centres where these kids will be fully supported. And, they're genius. I've kind of been on the periphery of that area for a long time. And some of the things I've heard and seen are just mind-shattering. And it's so lovely to watch other people now saying, okay, I get it, I believe it, I'm seeing it.
Yeah, these are our teachers, and they're calling them savants, wise beings. It was wonderful. And in that series, my favourite episode was actually the telepathic parrot, which just made me laugh so much. So it isn't just people. We know our pets, our dogs and cats can kind of read where we're at, and that opens up a whole era of telepathy between all living beings.
Yes.
And trees and plants and birds, and that was hilarious and so touching, actually, the telepathic parrot. I thought that everybody's got to listen to that. Just it was delightful. But it opens up a whole realm of we are one living consciousness.
Yeah.
And we just haven't fully realised.
I remember having a conversation with Professor William Tiller, who was one of the featured physicists in What the Bleep several years ago, and he was talking about the internet, and he said the internet and our ability to communicate through social media is just the first step to opening us up to telepathy.
Absolutely, 100%. We've got the external gadgets right now, but they're kind of training wheels for our telepathy. And that's absolutely where we're headed. But we are going to shift from the mind to the heart, and it's going to become a kind of a thinking heart, or a very wise heart. So there'll be less and less need for language and speaking in the way that we always have. This has been the information age, hasn't it? The age of the mind, and TikTok and Twitter and short attention spans, that's all going to shift as we move into the heart. We will feel other people's energy, we'll feel where they're at. And that's why it'll be impossible to be dishonest, to lie, because we'll just read each other's energy in a much more transparent way.
Which we're moving towards with so many people really understanding the power of their intuition.
Yeah, that's going to come up big time. And the more we can tune into the heart and again operate from the, and this is something I've banged on about for years, but operate from the inside out rather than the outside in, we're going to fine tune that intuition, because if we're living from the outside in, we are going to just be knocked sideways, I think, with the amount of information, of contradictory information about we're going this way, no zigzag, we're going that way, no zigzag, we're going. You're not going to be able to cope. It's going to be too jazzed up. But if you turn inwards, really you get into much more of a one-pointed focus. There's one thing to focus on rather than 1,000 things out there. And that helps you keep sane. It helps you keep stable. It helps your focus. And that is going to become our operating center, like our radio dial. And we're really going to achieve mastery of our emotions and our frequency in a bigger way than we ever have once we do that. And it's simple stuff. It's nothing complicated. It's all the stuff I talk about, you know, bare feet on the earth, hug a tree, laugh with a friend, hug a child, you know, did breath work, candle gazing, all of this incredibly simple stuff to bring you back to center. And I know you picked up on this, Sandy, but you know, in a world where misery is encouraged, love and joy can be acts of defiance. And I think that's really important.
I love that. I mean, so many people I hear saying, I want to do something, what can I do? And we don't think that something as simple as this is the most important thing that they could do. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Love out loud. Yeah.
Because you know, love more loudly. And it's what we are broadcasting as an energy and a frequency that will infect the collective. Because if you think, God, you know, the horrors that are going on, you know, the wars and the suffering and the fires in California that cause such devastation, and you know, it's just horrendous. And you think, what can I do? You know, I can't deliver aid. I'm thousands of miles away. If I send money, is it reaching the people? What can I do? Well, one of the things you can do, and Lynn McTaggart is the queen of intention in demonstrating this. She's got a big peace meditation actually coming up on the 1st of Feb, you may know. And she's got an evidence tab on her website of the evidence of what her meditations have done. All of us can do that for free at home.
Yeah.
All of us can send love, joy, peace, gratitude, compassion to change the world, to change our future timeline.
Yeah, well, the power of prayer has been demonstrated over and over and over. Yeah. Of all the things that are emerging, and there's so many of them, what's exciting you the most?
Oh, I think it's this idea of the new human, the future human. I think it is. And that excites me greatly. Plus the solutions, the boggling solutions that principally young people are coming up with. On my Facebook, I've got 2 pages on Facebook, and every day, at least once, but often several times, I'm posting brilliant innovations, often from school children, who are taking an issue like pollution or, you know, microplastics or whatever, and turning them into something amazing. I mean, I just read one today. It was a young chap, I think he's about 14, and he has discovered that comfrey, the herb comfrey, is just as good, if not better, a fertilizer to grow crops than chemical fertilizer. Wow. You know, it's just simple. And these kids are winning science prizes at the age of 12. So, you know, it's Aquarian energy, it's youth, it's innovation. So that excites me enormously. And I think devices, healing devices, frequency devices are going to really sort out disease. They're going to increase our longevity. They're going to turn our age back. And again, I'm thinking astrologically there of Homera, principally also Sedna. And these are going to be so exciting, but I think we have to throw ourselves into that timeline, because for me, they are two very clear timelines. Yes. One is much more technological and synthetic, and the other is much more natural and organic. So one of them is about, you know, the latest Apple or Google virtual reality goggles and having a Neuralink and getting nanobots to go around your body and clear up any disease. You just have to take a pill to get all your nutrition, you know, that kind of timeline. Or are you going to be kind of sticking your hands in the soil and going back to growing your own food, biodynamic farming, getting together with a group of people who love that and want to do that? And I've often used the analogy of, you're at a big airport and you've either chosen, you know, fast track or slow track. We're both going to get on the same plane of unity consciousness at the end of the day, but we're taking very different routes to do that. And I know which route I'm going to be on the bumpkin path. You know,
yeah,
absolutely.
I'll be there with you. Yeah, you know, it's interesting what you're saying about the young innovators, because I think the Generation Alpha, now they're calling, you know, the demographic cohort that's succeeding Generation Z or Z, and they were from 2013 to the mid 2020s, I think, and to call them Generation Alpha, I mean, that word alone, you know, is the first, the beginning, you know, it's amazing how all of this, you know, the little pieces that you'd pass over are all pieces of the puzzle. They're telling us a story.
Yeah, and the young people are going to be our teachers. Again, on social media, I occasionally catch some really young people who are kind of 3, 4, 5 years old, and the parent, you know, the mum can ask them about what is God and what is source and what is soul, and they'll just go into this soliloquy. Yes. That you think, blimey, you know, wow, they really are our teachers. They're wired differently, but that's where we are headed. We are changing our internal biology, and Greg Braden and Cryon have both talked about the reactivation of our 24th chromosome, but it's the interaction of the particular cosmic forces, because the Earth is moving through the galactic current sheet, which it only does every 12,000 years. You know, it's another big cycle. And the interaction of the cosmic energy and the very high frequency light is interacting with our DNA to bring it back online, to make us more multidimensionality, or remind us how multidimensional we are. And then you're into complete game changer territory, total. So I think it will be very hard to predict what is day-to-day life going to be like, even 3 years down the road. It's going to be completely different.
Yeah. You know, I mean, just take just one little thing, you know, with the rise of technology, and you've talked about the, you know, robots, etc. If they're going to be taking over work, and, you know, we've got AI that's, you know, many journalists are just fading away because of it. What's going to happen to workers? What's going to happen? How are people going to be earning their living? What do you see there?
Well, it's a very big question. And I was actually writing about this way back in 2013, but it's a very big question, because that starts to change the socioeconomic structure. And does that mean that the government will give us sort of a universal handout? And what does that mean in terms of obligations, etc.? So I think there's some huge ethical questions. And I think those people who wish to will more and more break away and think, actually, if we model to some extent society on indigenous societies, they have an incredibly healthy way of living. I mean, they don't pay for childminders, they don't pay for gardeners, they don't have a kind of job that they go to 9 to 5, and it's thriving. They are like an extended family of huge respect, and every living being is a member of that family. And so it's a shared responsibility. They don't have money that they deal with. You know, they just live close to the earth and find their own food, grow their own food. So I think that is one of the possible models for us going forwards, because it's going to be a combination of kind of the understanding of leading edge physics in terms of manifestation, and yet at the same time going back to indigenous wisdom and all that can teach us about the earth and the shamanic instinctive connection to the earth. And we're going to rediscover that sacred connection to the earth that's just been so trashed, certainly in our lifetime and many recent
And the
lifetimes,
benefit.
that we've used it to exploit and to pillage and being
Yes.
separate. Lived in big cities, and it's not something that we felt part of. But we can't exist without nature. It was very interesting. I'm sure you know this, Sandy, but way back in 1953, this is how the Schumann resonance got its name. It was, I think he was a professor, Professor Schumann, and he took a group of student volunteers, and they volunteered to go into a kind of lead building that was cut off from the energy of the earth, so they couldn't feel the resonance of the earth's heartbeat, if you like, that 7.83 hertz. And within quite a short space of time, within 2 or 3 days, they all started to become quite unwell, physically and mentally, a bit, unstable and unwell physically. So unbeknown to them, Professor Schumann reintroduced the earth's heartbeat into the lead building. He didn't even tell them. And they all became kind of normalized again. And that was when the whole thing about the Schumann resonance was discovered, that we need to have this connection to Mother Earth in order to thrive. And that's why barefoot on the grass, barefoot on the earth. I know it's not great weather in the UK or parts of the US at the moment, but in whatever way we can to connect to Mother Gaia, because we are part of her.
Absolutely.
And even for short periods of time, that can change our physiology. It changes the viscosity of our blood. You can read all about this on groundology.com. And so it is a literal, direct physiological connection with the earth. That happens in minutes. The change starts to happen within minutes.
Yeah. Looking at David's work, David Farrell, his work with the, quantum plant healing, etc. I did an interview with him recently, and Penny Kelly, and he was talking about the elementals. And, we forget that we are connected to everything. And I remember hearing some years ago that if you study places that go through a lot of, unrest, civil unrest, you will see something happening to the earth in that area, whether it's little, earthquakes or floods or things happening. The earth is interacting.
Yes, 100%. And, I've got some good friends who can pick up on that energy like lightning. They can just douse it, they can feel it, and they can also clear it. And a big part of what we're going through, I think, sadly, with these extreme weather events, some of which are natural, some of which are not natural, it's partly a cleansing and a purification of the earth, alongside all the the horrors that go with those extreme events.
Well, we're going to take a short break now. You're listening to What Is Going On. I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, and I'm speaking with internationally renowned astrologer Pam Gregory. And we'll be back with more. We know that astrology really is supporting our awakening, the expansion of consciousness, and the opportunity for us to really discover what it means to be human. What does it mean to you to be human?
Wow, that's a great question, because that was one of my really big themes this year. You might be aware, Sandy, because I think we are going to be offered many choices, some micro, mini, some big, that really underlying those choices is, so what does it mean to be human? Because I think we're going to be offered some really cool, convenient, quantum jump ways to get to experience different dimensions, to experience multidimensionality in a way we've never done before. And that's going to be very attractive. It's going to be very seductive. But is that truly a natural and organic path for humanity's evolution? For me, and this is simply my personal choice, it's up to everybody what route they take, but for me, as I always say, I'm going to stick to my bumpkin path, because I know if I follow the natural and the organic, that is what nature intends for humanity's evolution, in my humble opinion. Other people may follow the quick fix, as it were, the convenient, and it will seem very exciting, and it will seem very accelerated, even beyond the people who haven't made that choice. And they'd be thinking, come on, guys, this is a no-brainer. Look at all you can experience with these very simple and accessible texts. So I think we have to come back to that. But for me, it is remaining natural and organic without any invasive technology. I think it's the invasive technology that I draw a line at, because we do have Neuralink now, a chip in the brain. In Sweden, certainly for the last couple of years, you can easily get a chip in your hand, which means you can buy your train ticket faster. Sweden is big on this, on microchipping. If you work for certain large companies, you have to have a chip in order to open the office door, operate the coffee machine, get into the loo, and it's an opening, to all of the elements in the building and your computer as well. And so certain companies, as I understand it, are insisting on that as a condition of employment. I think I'm right in saying that, because Sweden are way ahead. And for me, I would have to say, do you know what? That wouldn't work for me. I'm not holding the truth. So it's the invasive side, I think. Yes, we're going to be operating with AI, whether we like it or not. That's in our world right now. We know it is. The automatic voice being that you have to deal with on the phone with a utility company or whatever. But it's the invasive side where I say, no, I'm going to stay currently human. But of course, we are not, in my view, 100% human. We are hybrids. We are galactic hybrids, because we've been cross-pollinating with other galactic races for millennia. So, but the dividing line between human as we are now, as we understand it, and machine, for me, is the invasive side. I'm not going to go down that path. But everyone must make their own choices. But these are the big choices. These are, particularly from July onwards, they are going to come lickety-split, particularly from July onwards. Yeah. And on.
It's interesting because, what makes us human? I mean, we tend to think that, me, this personality, whatever skills I've got, etc., are part of what makes me human. I look at AI and what AI can do, and as a writer, I'm shocked because it can write much better than I can. So now who am I? If I'm not going to be a writer, what else am I going to be? I mean, and many people will be facing this in different ways. Yeah, I mean, it really is. What does it mean to be human? I think it's the emotions. It's got to come in with the feelings and the emotions and the compassion and caring for one another. I think that's...
Absolutely. Yeah, really good point, Sandy. It is. It's the heart. It's the heart. It's the heart and a sense of your own divinity and sacredness. Those two things are super important, the heart and your sense of divinity and sacredness. And I also think to some extent it's creativity. I think human creativity ultimately is always going to be ahead of the machine, as it were. I think of AI much more as a replicator rather than a creator.
It's a cheat, isn't it? I mean, if I put something into AI, it's collecting everything everyone else has ever written and giving it to me. And making me feel inferior.
Correct. Yeah, correct. And I see my own stuff coming back at me, actually. It's quite funny. I've tried ChatGPT and I think, I said that, exactly. The same phrases.
Yeah.
Bizarre. So, yeah, the feelings, the compassion, the heart, and the sense of divinity, I think, can't be replicated with AI. Yeah. Just can't.
Of all the themes that you've talked about in your broadcasts, what are the ones that concern you the most and also give you the most optimism?
Yeah, great question. The one that concerns me the most, that isn't getting much airtime at the moment, is the increasing electrification of the Earth. It isn't just Wi-Fi, it isn't just smart devices, it's the fact we have thousands of satellites out there, an increasing number all the time. And apparently they have a limited lifespan of a few years, and once they kind of die out, nobody goes around with a garbage truck and collects them. A very good guy to follow on this is the geophysicist Stephen Burns. And he talks about how each of these satellites weighs several kilos of metal. Well, metal is highly conductive of energy, of cosmic energy. And so what that is resulting in is a much greater destabilization of all of the levels of the Earth, the ionosphere, all the way through to the Earth's surface, the Earth's core, which is iron and nickel as well. And we live on the Earth. So because everything is connected from way out there to inside us and inside the earth. This is an unprecedented level of electrification, and nobody knows where that's going to go. Nobody knows where that's going to go. And that concerns me greatly, because it's accelerating, and particularly with, you know, Mr. Musk in a very important position, that's accelerating. And there are currently very few people, I think, very few people thinking of, hang on a bit, you know, is that leading to somewhere that we may not want as humanity?
This is the problem, isn't it, with progress? I mean, people do things, you know, they've got access to all kinds of innovations, etc. And they do it because they can. It's like 3D printing, which I thought was amazing, and then you hear that someone can print a gun, you know. So they clearly haven't thought this all the way through, all the ramifications. So should we be doing things just because we can? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. And that's where I think, and I've talked a lot about in my videos, how we have to be extremely wise and cognizant in our choices. We have to be strategic. We have to think long term. You know, if I do X, Y, Z, where is this going? Because I think it's going to be very easy to be seduced by novel technology, and that's the kind of micro decision. But you suddenly think, this has got me onto a pathway that, eek, you know, I'm on the wrong lane in the motorway now, as it were. So I think we just have to be very, very discerning and thoughtful, you know, like a chess player, in terms of the decisions and choices we make, particularly this year, because they're going to come so thick and fast.
So knowing the astrology for this year, as you do, by the end of the year, what will we have seen?
Oh, yeah. So we will have seen the increasing crumbling of the old order, and even if you feel it isn't looking that way on the news, the foundations. You know, it's not that game. Is it called Junker? Junker, where you pull out the wooden blocks and eventually the whole thing. Jenker. It's a bit like that. So it appears to be, to some degree, more authoritative at a centralized level. The astrology is showing me that it's crumbling. These are old systems which no longer serve us, and the direction of travel is decentralized, because it has always been that way. When Pluto was moved into Aquarius, the power has begun to shift to the people. It's not handed to us. We have to work for it and earn it, but it is going to be much more grassroots, community-based, like-minded people coming together, forming groups, and coming together with a sense of sacredness, I want to say. And in these little pockets which are emerging all over the world, you know, they're buying land, they're growing food, they're meditating together, they're seeing the earth increasingly covered in a web of light, and they, in their quiet way, are creating miracles for our future timeline. And this is something that comes up a lot. You know, I have this free 15-minute meditation, which started on a Sunday evening, and people have asked, can we do it every night, because there's so much suffering in the world, which we do. No Zoom links, no tech, no recordings, no nothing. You join energetically. I've got a video on my channel called Sunday Meditation, but it's actually every night now. So anybody can do it from anywhere, really, 15-minute meditation. And the experiences that people are having, they report back that they're kind of bounced out to the galaxy, and they can see this incredible web of light, which is getting stronger and brighter by the day. They're seeing thousands of tall, benevolent galactic beings joining us and cheering us on. And it's thrilling what people are experiencing in these meditations, which all of us, any of us, can do. And so it's that gives me tremendous hope. And at the moment, often these little pockets of like-minded people are not necessarily connecting with each other across the world. The meditations do it, but they're not connecting in any other way for obvious reasons. You know, they're staying quiet. But there will come a time very soon where they will connect like a web.
Yeah.
Like a web of light in a much more tangible way. And then we have a freedom movement. You know, then we have something very, very different. And that's what excites me. And also the fact our biology is starting to change, and this shift further into the light body. and this is going to take a little while, it's not all going to happen this year, but many people are already, and it's only January, starting to feel that. So by the end of the year, more people will feel that, more people will be psychically sensitive, more people will have pulled back from the 3D world and decided to put their knapsack on their back and go their own way, and connected to other like-minded people. More people will be meditating. More people will be sensitive to connecting with the earth and trees and animals of all kinds. So those are going to be it's a shift from outer to inner that I hope and believe we will see by the end of this year. And there's still a lot of work to be done, but this year is the kind of turbulent and chaotic year in a way, but the year of greatest promise, because we have got a pretty much blank canvas. We are creating with our thoughts, our emotions, and our choices our tomorrow in every moment. Every moment we are creating this. The canvas has never been more blank, because in the old days of our life, we'd follow the predictable path. There's no predictable path now. We are creating it, and that's a great spiritual responsibility, but it's exciting because we can make it what we want, full of love, joy, compassion, gratitude, abundance, sharing, helping each other in a way we have never done in this lifetime, or again, many lifetimes. And that, if you can link with the right people, even ideally in person, but even online, that becomes a momentum where you think, wow, I am really riding something that's incredibly exciting, rather than feeling despair.
Were there any themes that you didn't have time to include in your broadcast on the themes for 2025?
Wow, I'm sure some will emerge. I think we are certainly, and what I didn't emphasize enough probably, is I think we are going to discover way more about our cosmos, our galaxy, our cosmos, our universe, than we have ever known, which may knock all of my astrology into a cocked hat, frankly. But I'm open to that. It's a paradigm shift. So I think we are going to discover way, way more about the out there than we have ever known. Yes, it's the galactic connection, but it's actually the way the reality of the cosmos, the reality of the universe is formed, the energy of that. And we're just starting with, Dr. David Clement's work and other people's, Veda Austin's work. We're just getting a kind of glimmer of that. But I think that will radically change our view of the cosmos and how we create our reality in a huge way. And I probably didn't emphasize that enough, but that was a really good question, Zoe.
Yeah. So you've talked about how, you've given us some guidance and tips on how people can kind of find their stability through all of this. What couldn't we take from the 9-year, the whole completion, concept that could help us in wrapping up personal things that we need to let go of? Do you have any?
Yeah, great question. I think stop giving life support to what is not for your greatest good. Stop giving life support. Stop watching the news. Stop going, isn't that horrific? Because that is food in the quantum realm. And that's true on the collective level. Whatever we give our attention to, we are feeding. We're enabling it to continue. So just, if that's not for our highest good, just stop it. And also look deeply into your own life and say, with this job, this home, this relationship, this friendship, if I'm absolutely honest, is that really helping me grow? Or have I already outlived it? Is it already stale or routine, familiar? So it gives me a sense of security and stability, but actually it's a deadening routine or a deadening relationship or a deadening job. And be really brutally honest with yourself, because often as we close that old door, a myriad of opportunities pop up, which we could never have imagined until we close the door. But we have to close the door to free up the energy to create the new with. So I think that's what I'd suggest to people, and be really brutal, have a quiet day where you look into yourself, look into all of the aspects of your life and say, what's working and I want to consolidate and grow, and what's really a done deal for me? What have I done to death and is no longer actually helping me?
This kind of reevaluation has been a big theme in people's lives ever since COVID. We can look back on COVID now and we can see some of the benefits that we couldn't see at the time, but it has certainly been a demarcation point, and people have started reevaluating. Do I need, to have that second car? Do I need to earn as much? Would I be better off, doing something that I love? So that's interesting. One of the things that always fascinates me, Pam, is you do so much research, and you're doing this as service to the world. And you see all the possibilities that are to come. But it's not the same as actually watching what happens when they do come. For instance, you may have talked about fire, water issues, etc. And then you see something like what happened in LA. As an energetically sensitive person, which I know you are, how does that sit? Because you're carrying the thought of what might happen, and then you're feeling the reality of it.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because, inevitably our heart goes out. I mean, the emails I got from the people in South Carolina, in Florida, in California were just absolutely heart-wrenching. I mean, because they're, by the grace of God, go you or I. It could be any of us that lost everything, and that in moments lost everything. I mean, it's just unimaginable. It does help us bring up our compassion for sure and come together as humanity. But what do I do about that? Great question. Because I can see some very big climate changes this year. Very big extreme events with changes of sea level and extreme climate, wind, fire, flooding, etc. And I need, to stick to the integrity of the astrology and state those, but at the same time not over-egg the drama, and also say, people, we can change the severity of this. Yes, it's in the astrology. We can change. It's almost like a symphony. You're the orchestra of your. You're the leader of the orchestra of your symphony. So, do we need to play down the bass notes? Do we need to bring up the triangle and the piano? We can change the severity of potential extreme situations by living in love, living in joy, living in peace, living in compassion. We can change it. If we go into fear, we will amp up what we absolutely don't want more of, and then blame it for giving us a hard time. You get into this ridiculous circle of, because I know this isn't a popular view, but I do believe in my bones this is the case. If we believe we are responsible for creating our reality, by logic, it must be the case to say the collective consciousness has created the collective reality. So we've created a lot of this through fear. So we have to stop it. We have to stop it and shift our focus and our frequency, even one degree on the compass needle, 1 degree, to soften the potential extremes that may be coming up. And then we'll have an easier ride through these, as we're taking off in the plane. Yes, it's turbulent, but you get an easier ride at higher altitude, i.e. higher frequency.
Yeah. It does, and I'm right with you there. I do believe we create our own reality, and we are responsible for everything that we're experiencing, for sure. I actually had that shown to me, that your outer world reflects your inner world, when I was going through a very stressful time recently, and then everything fell apart around me. I mean, we see it all the time. We have to change, as you say, within. It's all from within.
100%, and I feel it in my bones more and more with every passing day. We create it, and what we see in our reality is just a mirror of what we're broadcasting. So it's an inside job. Always it's an inside job.
I want to thank you on behalf of everybody who watches your videos. We have to acknowledge the amount of work and the passion and the energy that you put into this. You've devoted your life to doing this. And so I want to officially say thank you on behalf of everyone, because you deserve that, Pam.
Oh, bless you, Sandy. That's really touching, actually. It makes me feel very emotional. But I think it's just, that's what I'm here to do. But bless you, I deeply appreciate that. And it does